Good morning and welcome to the final run to the checkered flag here from the Audi Sport Studio above the pits at the Nürburgring. We're on the Grand Prix circuit, of course. The Nordschleife has cleared a little bit this morning. Let's take a look at the weather and show you a little bit of how it looks down in the pit lane. As you can see, it's not completely dry there, but let me tell you now, if you weren't with us last night at just before 10 o'clock, frankly, that looks like a summer's day compared to what we had yesterday evening. I'm John Hindhoff, and it's all getting very exciting. 6.5 hours as a run to the flag as we stand right now. Let's review what happened overnight. And just because we weren't racing doesn't mean there was nothing happening. First of all, let's say good morning to Chris Reinke from Audi Sport, the man at the head of Audi Sport and Audi Sport Customer Racing. Did everybody manage to get away last night, Chris, and take some time away from the track?
Well, first of all, a very good morning from my side as well. Out of the Eifel here that lives up to its moose with its fog and wetness early in the morning. Yes, we had an unusual night, and when we talk about a recap of the night, not too much going on out on the track. We were quite busy heading into the night with giving some service to the cars, but I think the decision of the race director to straight away clear it out that till 7 o'clock no further action will happen on track gave us a possibility, and when I say us, really everybody to take some rest. So when you ask, yes, everybody went back to the hotel to get some hours of rest. Everybody back here on site by 6 o'clock, and since 8 o'clock we're out racing again.
How much work did you have to do to the cars? Clearly, car by car, it was going to be different. You made some precautionary changes. You did some, what almost might be called planned servicing. You went around the cars and checked. What exactly went on with the cars at the sharp end of the field, Chris?
When you say planned service of cars, we changed the brakes on all the cars, so that's done. That's something which is likely during the 24-hour race, so we did that, so that is done. Besides that, we had slight bodywork damage on one of the cars, and as you mentioned, we changed the gearbox on car number 1. Only precaution reason, we had one mid-shift during the race, which we couldn't explain for the moment. And before investigating further how that occurred, we decided we have the chance, the red flag is out, so we changed the complete gearbox.
And is that the driver that tells you that? Do you see it on the data? How does that information filter through?
Now that is, we see directly on the telemetry, and we see it earlier than the driver gets on the radio to tell us, but he obviously feels when the mid-shift does happen.
Wow, and just one misshift, but you thought better be safe than sorry on that one.
Correct. In regular race, we wouldn't have cared. Here, we had the chance, so we do care.
Yeah, you would have just kept watching it. We got back underway just after 8 o'clock. The cars rolled spot on 8 o'clock this morning behind the safety car, and this is how things were going. What were you telling the drivers, and what were the drivers telling you on that first exploratory lap? Because quite clearly, it was a voyage into the unknown. It's at safety car speeds, Chris, and you're not really going to find out what happens until you go through there at full race speed.
No, absolutely, especially late at night when the rain was so heavy. It was kind of the desire of the drivers themselves. Can we do something about it? This race is getting very dangerous. We have seen also front runners getting involved in crashes. Also, we had 2 cars touching the barrier, 1 car spinning without touching anything. We were very lucky that we came away without severe damage. We have seen at the competitors, we had damaged front-running cars. So I think it was very responsible to stop the race, and that was also what the drivers asked for.
What is amazing to me as we have a quick look at the restart here, this was coming round after the safety car had pulled back into the pit lane. The amount of spray that we saw coming across the start-finish line, it's light, but still the spray is difficult. Within a couple of laps, there's barely enough on the windscreens of the cars to make the windscreen wipers work. These tyres, these wet weather tyres, are extremely efficient.
That's the one thing that they're extremely efficient, but we got to see that the rain almost stopped. So we have a lot of mist in the air, so there is quite humidity, but there is no more rain falling. So there are now, 80 plus cars going around the track on rain tires. So 80 cars having then, 320 tires, which dry out the track.
That's good arithmetic for this time of the day. Well done.
And that helps, obviously, to dry the track out. And we have seen yesterday at the start of the race, I mean, there was much more rain. We had much more of the mist standing when the cars would come by from 10 to the back. It was like, like fog out there. We don't have that at all anymore.
No.
And we expect now our strategists are gambling. When are we starting to think about intermediate dry tires, cut slicks, whatever options we have, because we expect a dry phase to happen very soon.
Well, let's take a quick look into mission control, if we can, as we've been calling it. That's where all the strategy is being called. And presumably, Chris, you already now back timing, as I would call it, from the end of the race. There's always a point in the race when you do that, but this 7-hour sprint, effectively, has that put you into that mode a little bit earlier?
Well, absolutely. I mean, usually there is a phase in the night, and usually it's in the early hours when you start to do the strategy from the back of the race rather than go into the race. Depends on how the night is going. Here it was clear. At the restart, we already now backtrack the race, so we do the strategy from where would we be at the flag.
And the weather? What do we think?
For the moment, our weather frog tells me that it will dry out and will stay dry to the end of the race, and this is what we are betting on for the moment.
Weather frog, thank you very much. I like that. Chris, I'll let you get back to work and overseeing what's going on. Chris Reinke, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Well, thanks a lot, and out there to everybody, enjoy a great 24-hour race, even so it's just a few hours less this year.
Excellent stuff, and really hard work overnight from everybody concerned around the circuit, including the marshals, who I really feel for. And Alan will be chatting to some UK marshals in our next programme at midday. It's a bit of an Alan McNish extravaganza, the next programme. And speaking of Mr. McNish, good morning, Alan. How are you feeling?
Good morning. Very good, actually. I'm down to one jacket instead of two, spec of yesterday, and sitting here in the pits watching the restart.
You're sitting down?
Yes.
What's this?
I am a fan. As a fan, you get to enjoy it in a very different way. I'm not working. I'm enjoying the whole atmosphere of it. So I'm sitting here waiting on the next pit stops coming up, which should be quite soon, actually.
Yeah, we've had the guys out. They started on full tanks, of course. It was effectively a restart for the guys. I would think, Alan, from a driver's point of view, that would really change your the mental aspect of things. Being able to go away and get 3 or 4 hours kip in the middle of the night is so unusual in a race like this.
Yeah, it certainly is. There's no question about it, because you don't expect it. In fact, I've got someone sitting next to me here, Marcus Winkelhock. Marcus, you're in a pretty good position because your car's leading the race. Christopher Haas is pulling away, but at the same time, you look very, very fresh. You don't look tired. It's now 9 o'clock in the morning. Usually you've got the run into the end. How do you feel?
Thank you for that compliment. Probably it's because I was sleeping a couple of hours. Normally we are... Actually, I'm a driver. I never sleep during a 24-hour race.
Never?
I always stay awake, but due to the red flag, I could have a nice nap in the Lindner Hotel. So I have to say I'm quite fit.
And normally during the race, if there hadn't been a red flag, would you have gone back to the hotel, which is just here, or would you have stayed somewhere near the pit?
No, I've just like a little electric scooter. I went to the hotel, and I was always informed by the team to WhatsApp what's going on, and then they wrote me there will be further information 7:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, okay, then I gotta sleep a little bit.
Now, your teammates have done all the hard lifting. They were out when it was very wet. You got out the car at 6 p.m. when it was starting to get heavy wet. What did they say about the conditions later on when they red flagged it?
When I spoke with Haas, he said it was actually a good decision to stop the race because it was quite dangerous, especially when you were behind another car in the slipstream. He said with the spray it was really difficult to see where there's water standing. Then he was catching quite often unexpected aquaplaning and stuff like this, and he said it was quite risky. As you could see, he spun in Hatzenbach. Yeah. So from that point of view, we were quite lucky there that he just could continue. But he said it was really difficult and a lot of risk to keep the car on track, but he was doing very well. He was really fast on track. He was catching the front runners, and that was actually the reason why we said, okay, you're going to do the restart. You know the conditions.
What do you mean the conditions 8 hours before?
Yeah, but he was exactly. Yeah, but he was let's say on a really wet condition when the race started in the car. He had a good feeling for that, and where like is aquaplaning risk and stuff like that. So we said from that point of view, it's the best strategy-wise to put him in the car to do the start.
Chris Reinke just actually said to John in the studio upstairs that he thought it was going not to rain again for the rest of the race. But do you think it's going to dry up? Do you think the circuit will go to slicks?
To be honest, I think so, yeah. So I think it was difficult now for the start, the conditions, but I think we will have even more difficult conditions later going on. As you said, when it starts to dry up, it's about the driver's decision, which tires we're going to put on the car. And there you can lose a lot of time and gain a lot of time. So I think this, when we have the crossover from maybe slick and rain tire, there you can gain and lose a lot.
I just actually saw one of the teams, because the pit stops are coming up soon, and they were readjusting tyre pressures. And that will be from information from Christopher on the first stint, just to try to balance it for his double stint.
Exactly, yeah, tyre pressures is a really, really important thing. I had this problem yesterday already when I did the start. The tyre pressures were pretty good. And for the second outing, the tyre pressures were too high, and there was like, I was missing like, I don't know, 5 seconds per lap immediately. So tyre pressures is really, really important. And I just spoke with my engineer about this topic to focus on that.
Yeah, it sounds like the tyre and the tyre management and the decisions are going to be one of the key factors to win this race, or not?
Absolutely. What I said before, when the crossover comes, trying up, this is the point where you can win and lose the race, I think.
Well, Marcus, you've won this one 3 times.
Yes.
In your family, you've got 5 Nürburgring 24-hour victories.
You're well informed.
I've followed your career since you were a little boy. And so, you know, it's a long way to go, we all know that. But you're in a good position at the moment, leading. In fact, the 29 car that's second has got a 32-second pit stop penalty the next time it comes in, due to an infringement from last night. And so, therefore, you should have a reasonable gap. But we know the competition's coming as well. So, Marcus, thanks very much. Have a good rest of the race, and I'll see you at the end.
Thank you.
John.
Alan, just to underline what Marcus was saying there, hopefully Didi and Thomas in the truck can punch up for our viewers one of the onboards at the moment. The wipers are off on the cars, and it still looks horribly greasy. There's no way you could go onto slicks at the moment. They're looking at the Phoenix Audi that is in third position at the moment. It's Frank Stippler behind the wheel for our viewers, but there's not a touch of spray on the windscreen. He's just in the Caracciolo carousel at the moment, and it is starting to have a drier line. You know, when you can just see that slight change in the surface, but it's got that horrible greasiness on top of it.
The problem is the tyres work at a working temperature, which is related to the track and the amount of load you can put into it. And so in the heavy rain, the wet tyres evacuating water, and it normally gets into its window. When it gets to this greasy crossover, the temperature usually is outside of its window, either too cold, so maybe 30 degrees instead of 40, 45, or too hot when it gets too dry. And then the car moves around, so you go from either just sliding and the block pad doesn't move and give grip, to just the whole thing's moving around like a big sponge. And that's from the feel. From the vision perspective, you're right, the wiper goes off, but there's still all that smearing dirt and oil and the pittedness of stones and everything else that's damaged the tear-offs. And so you clear a tear-off and it looks a lot better at the next thing. It's actually suddenly like you can see again, because you come in and it degrades over a stint naturally, and you just see the small degradation, and then they take a tear-off and it's bang, it's like somebody puts a light on, and then you can see. But as soon as you go back out again, it starts going for the next one.
Now, Alan, in terms of the front of the field, we heard about a little bit of good fortune for Audi last night when cars were spinning but either didn't do any damage at all or very light damage. Audi, in terms of Audi Sport and Audi Sport Customer Racing, have still got a lot of cars in this race. A lot of the competition have lost 1 or 2 of their major contenders. Does that give extra advantage in terms of the data that's coming in to make those crucial decisions on the crossover point that Marcus was saying? And is there potentially an opportunity to say, let's put one of the cars that's maybe further down the field onto slicks and see how it goes?
Yeah, definitely. You know, there's 2 things. If you have got more bullets in your gun, than your competition, you've got more chance. And it's a simple math. But at the same time, you can look in a team that functions together to look at someone that's maybe out of sync to try a different strategy gamble. And you know exactly that gamble you're taking, and you can watch the progress and then later on change your other cars if it's right or not if it is wrong. And so there's no question about that. The competition would be following you, but they'd be one step behind. And so that effectively gives you that one-step advantage, hopefully to make a right strategy call. I've used that within Audi many times. In 2008, we won the Le Mans 24 Hours because our sister car, who were out of contention for the podium, sacrificed a stint just to see what our tyre choice would be. And ultimately, we won by just a few seconds, and that was enough to make the difference. So we're not in that position today at the moment, but that could very easily come to play later on. As just to the left-hand side, you can see the Michelin tyre engineers are starting to take the tyres out the blanket and just to have a look at them. So it is constant preparation by the tyre engineers, the team, the driver, constant communication. And mentally, that's super tiring. I know they've slept overnight, but mentally, just this concentration. And watch another thing live at home. If you get an onboard, look how tense the drivers are in the car. They're not driving with the fluid nature that they normally would. They're holding on because this place bites. And the difference, as you saw last night, between staying on the circuit and being at the front and leading and being in the garage and repairing half the car is done in that.
I'll let you get back to all that busy work that you've got there running around.
Yeah, 2 sugars in my tea,
Yeah.
please. Thank you very much. Yep.
I need to have a word about your.
This fan stuff's brilliant, John.
Alan McNish down in the pits will rejoin the international commentary feed on the split screen just in time for the pit stops that are coming up. And when we come back for the next Audi Sport live studio show, Alan is going to be taking a look around the circuit at some of that fan interaction that you can't have this year. As I said earlier, it's a little bit of an Alan McNish extravaganza. That's at high noon Nürburgring time. For the moment, from me, John Hindhaugh, from the Nürburgring pit lane. Thanks for watching. Rejoin us at 12 Central European Summer Time.